Hello and welcome to this tutorial where we're going to create this spherical furry ball character with eyes, and then we're going to animate it so it jumps and have some dynamics for the hair and set up lighting and have fun with it. So let's get started. As always, we're going to delete this box here, and we're creating a spherical character, so I'm going to press Shift A, and before I proceed I'm gonna turn on a screencast so you can see what I'm pressing on my keyboard in case I forgot to say that. Yes, so because our character is spherical, it only makes sense that we start with a sphere, and I'm pressing the add menu by pressing Shift A. And here we have the sphere, and I'm gonna make it go like lay on the surface of the grid, and let's start adding some eyes to it, because we don't need any more shapes to the body. It's just a sphere. So Shift A again and creating one more sphere. I'm switching to editing mode. Once I have all the vertices selected, I'm gonna scale it down. Maybe we could make the eyes a little bit bigger. And I'm going to explain to you how the eyes are usually created in physically correct and photorealistic characters, but you still use it in cartoonish characters as well, because eyes is the kind of thing that is very important. We always look into the eyes of a character. So I'm gonna delete, I'm gonna make a copy of this. Yes, we have this one. I'm gonna make a copy of this. Just move it to another layer for now. You'll understand why we need it a little bit later, but for now I'm gonna concentrate on this. So I'm going to this edit mode, then delete this vertex, and probably even delete that. Oops, edges and face, no. Delete vertices, yes. And from here on, I'm gonna extrude this inside and extrude it backwards. So I'm gonna press Y button on my keyboard so I limit the motion of this to Y-axis. Let's apply subdivision modifier to that so we can see the smooth faces. And in addition to that, smooth. No. But I need that. I'm gonna just go to edit mode, select all the faces, and in the shading and UVs tab, I'm gonna press smooth. That way we get this smooth shading. We're gonna eventually do that to the body, but we're working on the eye so far. So to complete this part, I'm gonna select these edges by pressing Alt on my keyboard, and selecting one of the edges, it selects the whole loop. So in the edges menu, that is appears by pressing Control E. I'm gonna select edge crease so I can make these edges a little bit sharper after subdivision. Yes, like that. Press Shift H so I hide the rest of the scene. I want to only concentrate on this eyeball for now. And I'll actually return that sphere that we had. So I've switched to another layer, pressing M to move to layer menu and getting back to this. So now we have these two spheres lying on top of each other. And with this one, let's repeat the smoothing process. Oh, smooth faces, sorry. And I'll scale it just a little bit. And for the meantime, I'm gonna make this outer sphere a little bit transparent in a way that the Blender render supports, even though we're gonna be switching to cycles when we're gonna be doing the real rendering. So I've switched transparency setting checkbox here in the object settings, and I'm gonna go to materials, create a new material, and turn on transparency for it and decrease the alpha a little bit. And yes, maybe when we look at it in material, or yeah, it's fine, it's solid. You can see it here. Yeah. And oops. So we need to edit that geometry as well. I'm gonna select these faces and extrude it a little bit and scale it down. And I'm pressing Ctrl plus and plus on numpad so I can grow the selection from that one vertex. What I'm trying to do now, as I said, is getting the anatomically correct shape of an eye. And even if you're not doing a physically correct character or a realistic character, this is still quite important, because for most of the characters the eyes still need to look that way. Can I apply the subdivision modifier on the outer part of the eye? So we have these two, and the outer one is gonna have a material that is glass-like later on, whereas the inside one is gonna have the white part in here and the color of the pupil here, and this small area is going to result in being black just because it's a hole in the eye, just the way it is in the real life. So far I'm gonna leave it like that, and we're gonna move on to creating eyelids. So I'm gonna move the cursor to the center of this object by pressing Shift S, cursor to selected, and I'm gonna create one more sphere. That's a big sphere. I'm switching to edit mode and scaling in edit mode, because when you're working with animation, it's best to not do any scaling transformations on the object mode, because this can mess with your hierarchy later on. So to create the eyelids, I'm gonna switch the face mount, and here I'm gonna delete these. Wait, do we have those selected? Nope. So, so we have that surface. Let's smooth it as well, and scale it a little bit. Before we scale it, I would like to switch it to the scaling center to act to to 3D cursor, and scale it a little bit more. I'm gonna apply solidify modifier so we get some depth to this. So we have kind of this mechanism now for this half shell. And now we're going to create another half shell. Just duplicate it by pressing Shift D on the keyboard. I'm going to rotate it. Let's use the keyboard R, X, 90. No, not 90, 180. And like that. And I'm going to scale it down just a little bit. This object that we can add it on the object mode because I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be connecting anything to it. But even if we did scale something on the object mode, it's a good habit to go to apply and press scale, just so that we always want scale to be here on 1 when we're working with animation. Well, most of the time it doesn't. You'll understand why once we get to rigging, maybe. So these are our eyelets for that eye. Simple mechanism. I'll just put it like that. The upper eyelid is always, most of the time, is just touching lightly the upper border of the pupil. This is the normal idle state. If you want to make character crazy, then you open it a little bit more, but most of the time it's like that. Okay, let's unhide the rest, show hidden, not that we had a lot. Let's give a smoothing to that, smooth faces. So I'm going to copy all of these objects to the other side as well. But I would like them to stay connected so that if we edit one, that we don't have to edit on the other one. And to do so, I'm pressing, and we have this duplicate linked, or Alt D instead of standard Shift D, Alt D. And I'm gonna move it to the other side. Like that. So what that is allowing us to do is, if I edit, that's supposed to be, yes. That is affecting the other side. Like, let's do it on something that is a little bit more obvious. Yeah, it's updating once you leave the edit mode, apparently. So yeah, if we do something on one side, we won't have to redo that on the other one, which is a huge time saver. Of course, this doesn't work for these kind of modifications. They're the object level modifications, which is convenient because if we want to animate this eye, we don't want it we don't want the same to happen on the other one. So I'm thinking maybe we could make those eyes a little bit bigger. So I'm gonna select everything but that guy. And switch pivot point to individual origins. That way we can scale them independently. Maybe too big of an eye. Oh, I had these lines selected, and it's not a problem. Actually, let me hide the camera and the light so that they're not causing any problems. Okay, let's scale it to this size. Yeah, and I would like to give this a little bit more character. Gonna select that and rotate it a little bit like that. And like that. That looks pretty funny. Okay, let's start adding the fur. Let's see how it's gonna look with the fur, and then we'll add some more details, maybe and correct the way things look. So I'm gonna add a plane so we have some floor here. And actually hide it right away because I don't want to see that floor just yet.